What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fish Hook YouTube channel. It is super cold in Georgia right now. I think it's about 25 degrees, which is pretty cold for Georgia. But in today's video, I wanted to do my top 3 crappie lures that I always have with me if I'm going crappie fishing. And these are just my top 3 baits, so they may not be yours. They don't have to be, but these are what I like to use. Me and Dad both like to use these. So my first one is a Beetle Spin. Probably, you guys have probably heard about all these baits I'm going to mention, but I feel like this might not be a lot of people's go-to for crappie, and it's not necessarily mine either. But in certain conditions, you can catch a lot of crappie with this. This one's just a kind of like a micro spinner bait, and it has this jig trailer on it. Me and Dad have both caught a lot of good crappie with it. In creeks, if you run across crappie in creeks, this a lot of times will make them bite. And you'll catch a lot doing this. So you just usually do a straight retrieve with this, kind of slow, nice and steady. You can kind of jig it around every now and then, give it like a little pop. And this has caught some nice crappies, specifically pretty much in creeks, but we've caught these in ponds, lakes too. So this will work. Just this little micro spinner bait, the Beetle Spin. So that's one of my favorite crappie baits. I always if I have I have a crappie tackle box, one that's dedicated specifically to crappie, and this bait's always in there just in case. So then next I've got this. It's another spinner. I've not fished with this a whole lot. It's called the Road Runner. So it's got an underspin and a jig. You put a jig on it. So all these baits I'm going to show are kind of jig related. They all basically have a jig on them, but they're just different presentations. So this one has an underspin, and if you've ever noticed, crappie typically feed up. I feel like the underspin can be an advantage sometimes, and they'll see that a little bit more. But if you're in a situation where the crappie are super aggressive, they're chasing bait, then this is a really good option. It's called the Road Runner, but you can pretty much find these at Walmart's. Same with the Beetle Spin, but I just put on a Bobby Garland jig on this, and like I said, I haven't fished with this a ton, but it's something I've kind of found over the last year or two that I'm really starting to like more and more. And the more crappie fishing I do, the more I throw the Road Runner. And I have caught some nice ones with this too. So those are 2 spinner options that, in my opinion, are really good for crappie fishing. I also have caught crappie on a Rooster Tail. That's another spinner. That's not really a go-to spinner for crappie for me. If I'm going to use a spinner, it's probably going to be a Beetle Spin or the Road Runner like that. But Rooster Tails do work, and me and Dad, you guys have seen if you've watched our videos, if we ever troll a Rooster Tail, we'll kind of troll around sometimes. We'll catch crappie doing that. So that's kind of an honorable mention, I guess. Last, not least, just a old-fashioned crappie jig. This is just a regular jig head with a Bobby Garland jig, and you can't go wrong with it, guys. I mean, this bait me and Dad have caught the most crappie with. We've caught more crappie with this bait than any other bait. I'll just put it that way. Really, all conditions, this works good. Okay, this video is not revealing any secret baits. Okay, these are baits that, you know, this video is kind of more geared towards beginners. If you're just getting into crappie fishing, you don't know what to use. Obviously, this, if you can locate crappie and get this in their strike zone, they're gonna hit this, you know, 9 times out of 10. Okay. Of course, you can do this different ways. We like to use Bobby Garland jigs because if you notice the action on that, like, I'm not even moving and the tail's moving. Okay, that's how much like action Bobby Garland has in their tails. You can just see like it's just moving without me even moving. So you could imagine in the water when you're jigging, or you're just letting it float through, the water resistance against the tail just makes it paddle back and forth, and it's, you know, it's hard to beat that presentation. So we use Bobby Garland jigs mainly, just something like this. I usually kind of go towards a natural color. This is Blue Thunder, so, you know, it's got some blue in it and everything. But I usually go towards like a clear, maybe with some gray. Kind of that color tends to do well for me a lot of times. But obviously the water clarity plays a big part on what color you use. But the baby, or this Pan Assassin, me and Dad will use these jigs a lot as well. It's a lot smaller. I'll break one out for you and compare it to a Bobby Garland so you can see the difference. And you can find these at Walmart a lot of times. But here's a Bobby Garland jig, and then here's a Pan Assassin. So you can kind of see the size difference. Of course, my whole hand covers up this one. It's also a different shape too, but that versus this, and there you go, that's a better view. But you can kind of tell the difference in size. A little shorter, not as much action in the tail, but still does have that action. But this, you know, I tend to break out the Pan Assassin, the smaller one, for colder days, right? When it gets in the wintertime, like it is right now, fish tend to want a smaller bait. And so a lot of times I'll downsize to this, or if I'm in a situation where I notice the crappie are smaller, you know, there's not as many big ones, I'll go to this too, and I'll almost always catch them that way. So yeah, these are my two jigs primarily that I use for fishing, just a regular crappie jig. You know, we've tried other ones. I tried Bass Pro brand. I didn't, you know, it's pretty much the same dimensions as a Bobby Garland jig, but it just didn't have as much action to me. So it was more stiff, and I didn't really like it. But one thing about the jig is one thing about the Bobby Garland jig is that they're not very durable, right? You catch one fish and you usually have to kind of get you a new jig. This one will be all torn up. Or if you know, you've been casting a while and you haven't really caught anything, the jig tends to tear pretty easily. But, you know, I feel like it's because, you know, I feel like the action is because of, you know, how it's made. And I feel like the dirt, you know, you kind of lose a little bit on durability because it's not as tough, right? And it has to be, it's kind of got, yeah, the Bass Pro jig didn't have as much action, but it was more durable because it was more stiff, and it was just more durable. So I think you sacrifice durability for action in this case, and I think for me it's worth it to do that. You know, if I've got to change my jig out every now and then, that's okay, because I know I'm getting the best presentation with this. So those are just my takes. Those are my top 3 baits. They don't have to be yours for crappie fishing. I know there's people that love curly tails, and you know, there might be some other types of baits that, you know, I haven't really ventured into, but I'm pretty confident, at least in Georgia where we're at. You know, it doesn't usually get super cold, and if it does, it's not for long. That these 3 baits will catch you fish crappie year round. And I use these baits for other fish as well. Like I use the Beetle Spin for bluegill, and I've caught bass on these. You know, we've caught some nice bass on just a crappie jig. You know, I mean, 3-pounders and stuff. You know, so but that's for crappie fishing. Those are my 3 baits that I think if you go out, at least in Georgia, if you go out crappie fishing, you should have those in your tackle box, especially the crappie jig. That is not disappointing. So thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to be getting back to fishing really soon, and we got, you know, big plans for this year. Last year was our biggest year on the channel. We got lots of views, subscribers, everything, so we're just so thankful for it. If you enjoyed this one, hit the subscribe button for us and the like button. Comment if you've got an opinion on this video, or if you got a lure that you thought was better that didn't make the video. I want to hear what it was, so I can try it out if I want to try it out. I certainly haven't tried everything out there, but these are what I have success with. And so yeah, thank you guys for watching. See y'all in the next video.